Welcome to the Graybeard Wisdom Podcast, where age is not just a number, it's a story. I'm your host, Mark Freeman, guiding you through the timeless tales, invaluable insights, and hard-earned life lessons from those who have walked the path before us. Here, we celebrate the wit, grit, and wisdom that comes with the silver lining of experience. So grab a seat, lean in, and let's unlock the treasures only a graybeard can bring. Because wisdom, like a fine wine, only gets better with time. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, our guest today is Erica Block, a powerhouse professional at Rush University, a mother of three, and an advocate for sustainable living. And when she's not busy making the world a better place, she's on the tennis court, challenging that competitive spirit. Her vision for the future is compelling, exploring innovation in food, health, and even a secret desire to become a Rationale oven. Yes, you heard it right. So get ready for an insightful conversation with Erica, where we'll uncover how she's weaving together sustainability, nutrition, and a passion for progress to create something truly extraordinary. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, Mark Freeman here from Day One Hospitality, and this is our Graybeard Wisdom Podcast. Today we have Erica Block. Hey Erica, how you doing?
Good, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Erica is a Senior Director of Food and Nutrition Services for Rush University Medical Center and Rush Oak Park Hospital. And she's going to be a panelist on our upcoming Explosions meeting representing the healthcare sector. So that's a little bit of introduction that I'll do, but then I've got kind of this other question that helps maybe us get into who you are and what you are. So I spent about 3 years at LinkedIn. And when we introduced ourselves at LinkedIn, we always said, what's something that's not on your LinkedIn profile? So I'll ask you that question. Give us something that's, I don't know, ride horses or whatever it is you do. But what is it that's not on your LinkedIn profile?
So I played tennis in college the first 2 years, and then I transferred, didn't play for 20 years, and picked up the racket again 4 years ago. And
Awesome.
I play competitively with USTA team and a Jack Berry team, and enjoy doing that outside of work.
Wow, you're a professional.
Not a professional, but I've gotten back into it and I enjoy playing.
That's cool. That's cool. So where did you go to college?
So I actually started out my college career at Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then I changed majors and I transferred back home to Illinois, and I finished my bachelor's degree at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign.
And so what was your major, both beginning and in the middle, I guess?
I started out as a biology pre-med major, and I transitioned to a food science and human nutrition major with an emphasis in dietetics.
Oh, cool. That's great. Well, and so then I guess what got you interested in dietetics? It sounds like you were kind of on this path to be a doctor, right? And now you're off into this nutrition dietitian thing. Well, how did you make that switch?
So being an athlete, I saw how nutrition played a role in performing and doing your best. And I actually got a little bit nervous, to be honest, about having someone's life in my hands and making life or death decisions.
Yep.
Knew I wanted to be in the healthcare setting, and so just started learning about dietetics. The summer between my sophomore and junior year, I actually worked as a food service worker in a hospital and shadowed some dietitians, and really felt like it was a good fit for me.
Awesome. You talk about performance athletes, and like I spent again a few years at the Ford Motor Company, and I went into the manufacturing plants there, and these line workers that are building cars and trucks, they're eating, to me, they were eating horrible food, and it was like I had tried to talk to it was a union at the time and say, look, these are like performance athletes. These people, they're working all day and working hard all day and, and want to do the performance athlete thing. So I was able to, hopefully bring I brought green food in instead of brown food, what they were eating, right? But so it was kind of interesting to be, but I hear what you're saying about performance athletes. They need to eat right. That's definitely for sure, for sure. Okay, so, I guess, you're going to be a speaker, a panelist on our upcoming Explosions meeting, and you're part of this group called Agora. And I've talked to a couple people about it, but maybe give us your take on it and how did you get involved in this, well, sustainability overall, and then also this Agora group?
Sure. So Agora really is bringing different food service sectors together, and we really are learning from each other. Being in the healthcare sector, we don't always have a lot of funds necessarily to invest in things right away.
Sure.
So I learn a lot from the BNI and from the leisure and from the university side, because they have people actually paying for the services and they're needing to give the services that the person is looking for. In healthcare, people are coming to the hospital for the care they're receiving to have a quality outcome. So they're not maybe necessarily focused on, what the food service is offering. But we want to continue to raise that bar and what the expectation is. And things have evolved so that we're trying to create more of like a hotel experience rather than the traditional hospital experience.
Yeah.
And in doing that, sustainability has become such an important thing. I'm the mother of 3 children, and I want to make sure that we're leaving the world a better place, so that my children and my grandchildren and their grandchildren have a place that's safe to live in. So, thinking about how we decrease greenhouse gas emissions and how we make little changes that are meaningful. And so the Agora group really just brings us together to try to move the needle in the right direction and collaborate with each other. And I actually got involved because I'm a part of another organization, IFMA. I'm on the Food Leadership Council, and I met Jim Green through that group. And he really spearheaded putting this group Agora together.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I actually was on the BNI Business Council early on in the whole, evolution of those councils for IFMA. So I'm glad you're a part of that. That is a good group, and Jim is an influence for sure. So okay, so it sounded like these college universities and BNI were way ahead of what you were up to, and so you got in to learn. But I'm guessing that you were probably doing some things around sustainability that they can learn from you. I mean, and I, what I equate it to is when COVID hit, the B&I sector went south really quick. I mean, they shut down buildings, they sent everybody home and all that kind of stuff. And, kind of same with the college and universities, they shut them all down and all that. But healthcare was going crazy, right? And so we tapped into what healthcare was doing to get ideas about, at Ford, we put in a grocery store because people could work and they didn't have to worry about going to the grocery store at the time, right? And so I know that I saw some of that in the healthcare world. It's, you were taking care of those people that had to stay there all the time and work, kind of a thing. So, I mean, I'm sure there's some things that you can bring to the table for them to learn, right?
Sure. I mean, during that time, we were considered essential workers. So I was going to work every day, didn't get furloughed or anything like that. We still had patients to take care of, people to feed. So we were going to work. The big thing was, our cafeterias closed down or were limited in the allowing of space in those locations. So I got creative with my team. We created mobile carts that were able to go around the various buildings on campus and sell food directly off the carts. Using handheld credit card, Apple Pay devices. We also, leveraged our POS system to be able to do mobile takeout. So people were ordering on the app and we had designated stations to have those items picked up. So just getting creative to try to, make people not wait in line and make sure that people were social distancing. During that time, you know, we were still holding true to some of our original sustainability initiatives, you know, no styrofoam, no matter what.
Good.
So just trying to do what we could to keep things on track. We did, minimize or change our menu for our patients a little bit, just so that we could ensure that we were getting product in and we were able to produce food consistently and meet the nutritional needs of our patients. So we did go to more of a streamlined menu at that time, but just trying to continue to offer as much variety as we could with all of the parameters in place.
Sure, sure. Well, and again, I think, you know, people go to the hospital, if you will, not when they're feeling well, that when they're feeling ill. And from a food service perspective, it probably, you know, makes a lot of sense to feed them good food and healthy food, right? To hopefully use, you know, food to be able to help them recover and all that kind of stuff. And I think I saw someplace on your, maybe it was on your LinkedIn profile or somewhere, that, are you engaged in food as medicine kind of a thing, and you know, kind of pursuing some of that activity?
Yeah, so we have a wonderful community arm of our organization. And I have a wonderful partner in Julia Bassett, who really is part of that, a manager in that community outreach department. And she really runs our Food is Medicine and our Veggie RX program. And she's done a fabulous job on really making sure that our community and our anchor mission area zip codes are really taken care of and screened for the social determinants of health, so that we can make sure that those people that are food insecure are getting the food that they need to, you know, improve their health.
Okay, so is it built mainly around food insecurity, or?
So Food is Medicine, that's one piece, and that's really the Veggie RX and the delivering food to the patients' homes. There are some bags that go home with patients. And then
Okay.
we also have a surplus program that comes out of the kitchen. So any food that we produce that would normally go into the landfills that's reusable
Yep.
is donated to a local shelter. And so, or in the local food bank, so that's able to be repurposed and not making its way into the landfills.
Okay, cool. Well, and then kind of getting back to Agora, I mean, what are some of the things that you're working on as a group to be able to solve some of these sustainability, you know, concerns or issues?
So there's a portal that's being created to really help us identify where the food is coming from and have more transparency there, because sometimes what happens is when we're ordering from a distributor, the information is not readily available from them as to if something is certified sustainable or exact location information. And so that makes it hard when we're trying to collect data for, you know, greener, or for like GFPP, Cool Food Pledge, to be able to have that certified as meeting the criteria to meet the data requirement for those certifications.
Okay, so tell me about the portal. So I have a vague knowledge of it. What it seems to be doing is bringing manufacturers and operators together to be able to focus on, you know, maybe it's small manufacturers that can't get into the big conglomerate buying companies, and, you know, and they can present their food or their solution to, you know, if it's packaging or something like that, right? Is that kind of what you're trying to do, is break down the barriers between manufacturer and operator?
Yeah, so it's really creating more transparency. So the more hands in the pot, sometimes the lack of information from the beginning point to the end user. So
Yeah.
making sure that we don't lose the data and we don't lose the information in between, so that the end user knows exactly where the product is coming from, knows exactly how the product was produced, and knows that they're meeting the requirements, for example, with the Good Food Purchasing Program, that they're meeting those pillars within that program.
Okay, and then I'm guessing it's I don't know, a buying site, the hub, is probably a buying place where people can go in and kind of do a search, and if they're looking for whatever they're looking for, they can search and it'll bring up a list of companies that may fit that criteria. Is that kind of how it goes?
So it's still in development, but as far as what it looks like it's going to be able to do in the beginning stages is yes, you'll be able to look for an attribute or something that you're looking for, and it'll be able to tell you what manufacturers have completed the data upload that provide that attribute.
Okay. Okay, that's cool. I think that's a fantastic opportunity for the industry, right? To be able to do those kinds of things, I guess. Um, well, so I think you said you made a decision when you were in college to kind of think more about sustainability. I mean, where else did you get your inspiration for having this passion of sustainability?
So a lot of it too comes from my children, what they're learning in school and what they're asking. I live in a community that recycles, and so we have two separate garbage cans, and making sure that we're putting our cans and our items that meet the criteria in the recycling bin. And
Good.
the inquisitiveness of my children really spearheads me to want to get involved and do more. I walked in 6 years ago to an organization that was already very focused on being sustainable and doing the right things for our environment and for our local community. And so I was blessed to be able to learn from what they had already been doing and grow the program.
That's cool. That's cool. And, I'm always inquisitive about, the future, I guess. And so, I mean, maybe tell our audience a little bit about what you're thinking about as, sustainability is a big word, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff in it, food waste and packaging and, a plethora of stuff. I mean, what are you working on now that beyond what Agora is doing to bring a more sustainable food program to your program?
So we're really focused right now on local partnerships.
Okay.
So how do we drive purchasing more locally? We've had a lot of great success this past year. For example, there's a rice that's produced in Southern Illinois, Cahokia rice, that's got a higher protein content. We've been able to work with our distributor and our GPO to have that brought in under the programs. And so we've been able to convert all of the rice that we're using on the patient menu to the Cahokia rice. We're also focusing on offering more plant forward options for our patients and educating the patients on why it might be healthier to implement some more plant forward into their variety in their menu. So we have a stuffed green pepper that's made with that Cahokia rice that is vegetarian. So no meat in there, but with the mise en place and with the rice and some cooking, we've been able to still make it feel hearty, like you're eating a traditional green pepper, which is one example. We also took our meatloaf. We had a very popular traditional meatloaf recipe, and we added mushroom blend. So it's a 50-50 blend. And by doing that, we lowered the saturated fat. Potentially we're lowering, the carbon emissions by, not having as much beef in that product per se,
Yeah.
and offering a healthier version of that traditional option.
Well, and you mentioned education, I guess. So, again, the world that I was in, it was a struggle to get information to the end using customers. Sometimes they don't care, sometimes they don't look in the right place, or they see a sign once and then, it goes into oblivion, they never see it again, even though it's still sitting on the counter kind of a thing. And I'm guessing from a patient standpoint, I mean, it's a limited stay, hopefully, environment. So you've got, a small area to be able to educate them. So how do you do that? How do you make them know about your rice and your, local pepper and, all that stuff?
So we've been trying a lot of different things from QR codes to messaging boards around the campus, signage on flyers. We have specials every month that highlight certain items that are plant forward. We've found that our biggest advocate for patients to try new things is nursing. So we're really trying to leverage educating our frontline nurses on these offerings so that when they have a patient and they're providing them with the menu, they can perhaps recommend one of those items. And we're trying to get them to taste the items as well, so they know what they taste like and they know that they are wonderful items, and encouraging patients to try these items.
Do nurses lean into the idea of learning more about the food that you're serving and that sort of thing? Or is it like, something else to do?
So we're trying not to make it a burden. We're trying to just catch them at their regular huddles and their regular days and
Right.
dropping off things for them to try. We don't want to burden them. We want it to make their lives easier, of course. So we're just trying to educate them where we can, that we are offering these wonderful options for our patients and encouraging them to try them as well. And hopefully improve the health of all of our employees, not just our patients.
Yeah, again, in the B&I world, we used to the admins were the big deal for catering, right? And so we would have an event where we bring all the admins in and give them a free lunch or something like that. But what we were serving on our catered menu so that they could taste it, see it displayed, all that kind of stuff. I mentioned you might be able to, I don't know if you do that or not, but maybe do that with the nurses and, get them more engaged because, oh, I tasted that rice and it's really good and, blah, blah, blah. So do you do anything like that?
We do. We have a rotation of different units that we hit, and we have them sample food items. We also have done a lot of events this month with it being Earth,
Yeah.
Earth Day and Earth Month, with having some lunch and learns where we've been offering, instead of, a traditional catering menu, we've been actually offering the plant forward items that we have on our patient menu so that they can taste and see the wonderful items that we're offering.
Good. And obviously they're into the plant forward movement as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So how do you stay motivated around all this stuff? I mean, again, your kids, I'm sure that's part of the passion, right? But sometimes, like say your team or your customers, in this case, I guess the nurses or whatever would, how do you, I mean, you're excited about this, I can tell. How do you keep your team excited about, jumping into all this stuff?
So working in healthcare, I often, tell everybody you have to have a calling. It's a passion to want to take care of others when you're in healthcare. And so I take pride in knowing that what we're doing has an impact on our patients, and encouraging my staff to stay focused on, our vision, our mission, our values, to take care of the patients. A lot of times when a patient's in the hospital setting, food might be the only choice they have. And it might be on a restricted diet, but at least they get to choose the food items that they're getting. They're not gonna get to choose when they're pricked for their blood work or when they're going for a procedure, but at least we can make and put a smile on their face with the food that they're choosing to eat that day.
That's great. That's great. I guess kind of, maybe off script a little bit, but what about technology? Are you deep into technology and, like you brought up, understanding, the customer's needs and wants and that sort of thing. And I'm guessing there's probably some kind of a survey program or something like that. But what else are you doing? And you brought up this cart idea with regard, I mean, are you doing anything with robotics or, having a robot cart run around and any of that kind of stuff? Or what are you doing with technology?
So our organization uses a tug system already for transporting, supplies and linen. And we are actually on the next iteration to be able to pick up our dirty carts from the units, which will then free up that staff to not be having to go up to pick up dirty carts and bring them back down, helping to bring out our garbage down to the dock rather than a staff member having to lug that down to the dock. So those are just some of the examples of like robots that we're using. I attend a lot of shows to stay current, and I encourage my team to as well. I also encourage my team to get involved in organizations that are related to their career path. So whether it's the executive chef and the culinary organizations, or myself being part of, you know, AHF and IFMA, and my dietitian, my director of clinical nutrition services being involved in the academy, but staying connected and hearing what's out there. I know that there's a lot of things going on with ChatGPT and all of those other AI technologies, and that I see helping people that maybe aren't as articulate, or maybe can't think of how to word something on a menu, being able to wordsmith it through there and get a bunch of different ideas will just make it that much more enticing for a customer to try something. So I see that, you know, that technology helping there. Creativity with recipes. So, you know, trying to lower sodium in a recipe, I think perhaps that'll come up with some ideas of what spices you could try to lower the sodium content very quickly. So I think that's you know, going to be something that helps us get creative.
Yeah, you know, I guess where my mind went on when you were talking about that was that you have a lot of data about the patient when they're, you know, when they're there. And, you know, that data may be able to be used, you know, all the privacy rights and all that stuff, but, and what is it, HIPAA in your world, and, you know, being able to use that data to create a menu or a menu item that would be perfect for their needs, you know, depending on what, you know, what their blood pressure is and all the other things that go on in the hospital, I guess. Is there thoughts about that? I mean, you know, in the
So I
B&I
think,
world,
yeah,
yeah,
I think that would be more for a patient to decide in the home setting. I could see, because when they're in the hospital for, you know, an average stay of 3 to 4 days, you're not going to make a lot of change in that time frame. You know, lifestyle change and those types of things take longer than that. You can
yeah,
spark something, but they're really going to have to make those changes long term at home. So that might be something more in like an outpatient setting. In the inpatient setting, it's going to be more about, you know, making sure that they get adequate nutrition so that they don't become malnourished, so that
right.
the interventions that the physician is ordering and that the nurse is implementing happen in a way that the patient can recover and go home or be discharged in a more healthy state.
Got it. Got it. Okay. You know, you were talking about the tug system and the robots. I went to, when I was working at Microsoft, I used to go around and try and steal ideas, right? And I went to this hospital and they had a system like that. And I was really intrigued by it because it, you know, there's a lot that goes into figuring out how people get into an elevator, how a, you know, cart gets into an elevator. And then things I never even thought about was related to like the fire, when you know, there's a fire, the tugs are in the way. And so they apparently they're programmed so that if there is a fire, they go to a particular place out of the way so that, you know, people can egress and that sort of thing. So it was really intriguing to me. And I'm guessing that we're kind of on the cusp of really getting into a lot more robotics and pretty sophisticated robotics, you know, because again, I had one of these podcasts with Brian West from NVIDIA, and he was using these little robots to do just what you're doing, bring the trays back and forth to the dish area, you know, and the you know, the dirty trays and that sort of thing, and it, you know, it's just this little, you know, little robot. And compared to the tugs, it was, to me it was, you know, it was just really small. But again, I'm guessing that does your team kind of look at more of what's going on in this world of robotics and AI and all that stuff? Are you are your team staying on top of this stuff as to how it can be worked in? Because right now, at least for me, I think everybody's confused about how to use it, right? And it, you know, it has value, and I don't know, writing and emails.
Yeah, I think right now we're in the early stages because
Yeah.
some of it is cost prohibitive, but I do see value in repetitive things like, for example, we're producing, 300 side salads for the patient tray line. And there's an arm, I think it's Alfred, I think, I forget the name of the arm, but the arm can do, repetitive motions
Yeah.
and build things. So I could see that taking some of that onus on some of those types of items and
Yeah.
allow to, use our staff to more engage with the patient, with the customer, in a more meaningful way. Which also I think will add more, value to their work as well, when they get to
Sure.
actually engage with the customer. But I see those things out there. It's just, making them accessible from a cost perspective, I think is the next hurdle.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of again where my mind went is, you're restricted because of cost and you've got to be very aware of costs. But, to me, the medical world is moving into robotics to do surgeries. And, that's so to me, it seems to fit with the culture that probably is starting to develop within the hospitals, that it's okay to have these robots and they really do provide a huge value and that sort of thing. And then, equate that to the food program, right? So, yeah, and I guess kind of thinking about that. So, how do you sell ideas up your management chain? Is it, here's what it's going to cost and here's the value and hope and pray that they go for it? Or, I mean, what is it how do you approach that?
So having an ROI, return on investment, looking at the time it'll take to get that return on investment. It's not all the money, the financial, there's also, the impact to the customer
Yeah,
experience and the quality indicators. So it's really looking at the big picture. Is this going to impact labor? Is it going to be a cost savings in, labor dollars? Or, efficiencies or safety. So just looking at the whole picture and the whole return on investment from all angles and all of our pillars, and then, presenting that in a meaningful way. Sometimes it's yes, and sometimes it's not right now, but we'll look at it in the future. But yeah, it's continually looking for new ways to provide service and excellence for our customers.
yeah, yeah. Well, and you've got a multiple customer base too. You've got, patients, but you also have doctors and nurses and support staff that are there too. How do you have retail operations in your hospitals and colleges or universities? What's your makeup look like in as far as retail versus, patient trays or whatever?
So it varies by location. And it really depends on the location. I'm over 2 locations. Um, we have a really diversified offering of retail offerings for our, it's not just it's not just our employees and our physicians. We have students, we have visitors. So we have a lot of different types of offerings when it comes to the retail space, some of which we partner with vendors like Panera. And others that we run, our internal program for a retail location. So we really try to have a lot of variety, on both of the hospital campuses to be able to have something for everyone.
Sure.
And yeah, and stay
And
diverse.
I guess you do catering and vending and
Yes,
that
all
sort of
of those
thing.
things. Yes,
Yeah.
catering, vending, takeout.
Well, so again, it sounds like you're a forward thinker and kind of trying to be on top of everything all the time and bring in what's new and cool that's cost effective and has a good ROI on it. What's keeping you up at night? What is it that you're thinking about and concerned about as far as, anything really? I mean, sustainability or, like I say, technology or any of this kind of stuff. What are you focused on?
I think the big thing right now is the impact things like the tariffs are gonna have on food cost, the impact of the avian flu on eggs and chicken. So as our food costs go up and we're trying to, drive quality, that can compete. So how do we continue to, move the needle on the quality offerings and the sustainability, while costs are gonna go up? So, looking at, maximizing our SKUs and looking at ingredients and offerings, and we may have to adjust the amount of offerings we have so that we can ensure that we continue to offer the highest quality items. Yeah, I think it's just watching the market prices and adjusting accordingly. I think that, we have to see what the tariffs do. We have to see how this plays out with the avian flu on the cost of eggs and chicken, and be agile and willing to adjust our menus as things come, so that we can continue to raise the bar on quality and continue to move the needle on our sustainability initiatives.
Yeah, and again, I was at LinkedIn for a while in the South Bay of San Francisco, and there's a lot of crazy stuff going on down there. But one thing that I was starting to pay attention to, and this is from a sustainability standpoint, was, and don't laugh at me here, but it was cultured meats. So taking a cell of a cow and growing hamburger from it. And it's a little kludgy. And I've been watching it for quite some time. So, Singapore was a place where it took off, and the government supported it and made it, all the regulations able to do that. The US was a little bit behind that, but now the FDA has approved, the use of it. And so in Southern California or Northern California, it's just going crazy, the number of startups that are starting to fiddle with this. But are you doing anything with cultured meats from a sustainability standpoint?
We are not currently doing anything with cultured meats. We do use some of the vendors that have the plant-based meat
Yeah.
offerings.
Yeah.
But not cultured meats yet. I don't think it's quite mainstream yet. And we may get there, and we may have to get there, with just how much CO2 emissions come from some of those animals, and just the fact that there may not be enough animals to feed our growing population. So I think that's at the forefront, and it's very creative. I just don't see it readily accepted yet.
Yeah, it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of, test tubey kind of stuff right now. And we were approaching it more from a, feed the world kind of a thing, because
Yes.
there isn't enough land in the world to produce the amount of food that we need, because we're using it to grow corn for cows or whatever, cow feed and that sort of thing. So it's a big topic, but I just think that if it's accepted by the public, and that's a big if, it may be the future of what we're doing here. But anyway, so I recently I was on a panel, and it was a lot of different generations on the panel. I was a boomer, and there was, Gen X, Y, Z, and everybody in between, right? How do you on your, with your management style and your management team, how do you incorporate generations into what you do and how you manage? I mean, again, when I was at Microsoft, I was looking through a boomer's eyes, and my customer was, Gen Z. And I finally realized that I can't be, my decisions are not right. And so I created this group to bring people together of different generations to be able to hopefully make decisions better. But how do you deal with this generation, all these generations that are now in the workforce?
So there has to be a lot of different ways that we're training. So the younger generation likes vignettes or small videos to learn things.
Yeah.
Older generation might prefer a manual. So creating multiple formats for educational materials, I think, has been a big thing. I try really hard not to stereotype or to hold people to a particular group, because not
Sure.
everybody in that generational group is going to be a certain way. So it's trying to develop learning plans for each individual and looking to leverage people's strengths, and then, help support them as they develop their opportunities. So I think it's taking a look at each individual and really seeing how they learn, what their strengths are, what their opportunities are, and meeting them where they are, so that they can grow and be successful in the role.
Okay, yeah, that's good. And then I'm guessing that also maybe applies to your customers, the patients, right? I mean, that you obviously have multiple generations of patients that come in too, right? So that training can then be not only how your team works together, but also applies to the customers as well.
Yes, I mean, the patient population is diversifying, and there's a lot of different age groups there, and a lot of different, offerings need to, a variety to be able to hit all of those different types of people, and whether it be, what they eat at home is different than, other people, or what they eat because of their age is different than what other people eat because of the age difference. So making sure that we have a little bit of something for everyone, I think, is going to be the key
Yeah.
as we move forward.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, so again, you've been in the industry for a little while. I guess what advice would you give to someone who wants to get into the food service industry and maybe sees it as exciting as you do around dietetics and nutrition and food as medicine, that sort of thing. I mean, and it sounds like you talk to groups as well regarding the industry and that sort of thing. What advice would you give them?
I would just say, don't be afraid to try things, ask lots of questions, be open to learning, be open to making mistakes, be open to changing your career. I mean, I thought I was heading down one path and learned about something else and switched paths. And I never thought I would get into leadership or food management, and enjoyed it during my dietetic internship, and ended up, going into that way after I got my clinical foundation. So I would just say, be open and learn, be a sponge, learn as much as you can learn and absorb as much as you can.
That's fantastic advice. And again, I use that through my career. I call it opening doors. There's 5 doors there, you open one, and then there's 20 doors behind it. And you just keep opening doors, and all of a sudden, you're in the middle of a career that you just really love because you've opened the right doors and been open to taking in all the information that you possibly can. So that's fantastic. So I'll wrap up here with just some not yes or no, but questions of maybe a one-word answer. And then I've got this kind of ending question that I'll surprise you with, and we'll see where this goes. So domestic travel or international travel?
Domestic.
Any particular place that you like to travel to?
Warm. I like going down south where it's warm. Florida.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You could be a snowbird then, maybe, right?
I could, yes, I could. And I would definitely move farther south if it weren't for my family and my husband loving Chicago.
Okay. Jazz or rock and roll?
Rock and roll.
All right. I think I know the answer to this one, but winter or summer?
Summer.
Yep. Mountains or skyscrapers?
Mountains.
Movies or books?
Movies.
Rice or pasta?
Pasta.
Breakfast or dinner?
Dinner.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Chocolate.
Okay, cool. So the last question, and I have a really good friend by the name of Andrew Montesano, and he always asked this question when we had job interviews. And it was interesting to see how people think. But the question that he asked was, if you were a piece of food service equipment what would you be and why?
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of
There's
equipment.
a lot of equipment, yes. But I guess I would say a combi oven because
Okay,
you can cook a lot of different things and hold the things in a combi oven. And I enjoy multitasking and I enjoy problem solving. So just
uh-huh.
like that oven can problem solve for you, I like to do those things.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Well, this has been awesome, Erica. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I think it's been a great conversation, and we look forward to hearing you on the panel at the upcoming explosives meeting, and I think it's just going to be fantastic. So, thanks again for being a part of this Graybeard Wisdom podcast.
Thank you, Mark. It was my pleasure.
Okay, cool.